Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Global. We'll get you the top stories from India and the region. I'm Amritpal Singh, and for the news from the rest of the world, I'm joined by my colleague Benji Haya in Washington, DC. Good to see you, Benji.
Very good morning from Washington. We'll bring you all the latest on two main battlegrounds, the Middle East and Ukraine, back in the headlines, plus the latest too from the US presidential campaign trail. Kamala Harriss outlining her economic ideas in a speech shortly. First though, back to you for the latest headlines.
Gaza ceasefire talks underway in Doha for the second day. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi speaks to Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, urges de-escalation. British and French foreign ministers are in West Asia. Bangladesh's interim government head Mohammad Yunus dials Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Yunus assures of safety of Hindus in Bangladesh. And elections announced for the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir and the northern Indian state of Haryana. J&K to go to polls in 3 phases on September 18th, 25th and the 1st of October. Haryana to poll on 1st October, results on 4th of October. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi received a phone call from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Friday. Both leaders discussed the prevailing situation in West Asia, and Prime Minister Modi emphasized the need to de-escalate the situation. He also called for immediate release of hostages and the need for continued humanitarian assistance. An early and peaceful resolution of the conflict through dialogue and diplomacy was pressed upon. The counterparts held talks on various aspects of bilateral cooperation and ways to further strengthen the India-Israel strategic partnership. And Prime Minister Modi held a telephonic conversation with Professor Mohammad Yunus, the chief advisor of the interim government of Bangladesh. The leaders exchanged views on the prevailing situation. During the call, the Prime Minister reaffirmed India's support for a democratic, stable, peaceful and progressive Bangladesh. Yunus in turn assured protection, safety and security of all minorities in Bangladesh. And my colleague Jessica Taneja now joins us from New Delhi for more on that. She's joining us from the newsroom. Jessica, first of all, give us the latest on the situation in Bangladesh. Is some sort of normalcy returning to the country?
Well, yesterday, Amrit, there were protests, as you'd recall, outside the founder of Bangladesh, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman's residence, where the Awami League supporters were there to pay homage on the day where, as India celebrated 15 August, it was a day for the time when Sheikh Mujibur Rahman was assassinated. So to pay homage there, of course, we saw a little bit of violence there from the other side. But normalcy seems to be returning to an extent, but the concerns by the Indian side on the attack of minorities doesn't seem to be dying down. Now, if you look at the numbers, they are a bit startling. Now, ever since the 5th of August, or perhaps even before, when we saw the protests taking place in Bangladesh, attacks on minorities have increased and picked up momentum. So to say that in more than 278 locations and 48 districts is where minorities were targeted, Hindus, Christians as well. So of course, we're looking at the situation deteriorating in terms of what is happening to the minorities, and that is the concern the Prime Minister had. And if you'd recall, even yesterday from the ramparts of the Red Fort, the Prime Minister during his Independence Day speech had also mentioned that he is worried about the situation in Bangladesh and that he would want normalcy and peace to prevail soon. Now, given that a particular concern that India has had, even today during the briefing by the spokesperson of the Ministry of External Affairs, we heard similar tones of the concern and, of course, the loss of life that we've seen in Bangladesh in the last 1 month.
That's right, and the chief advisor did, assure the Prime Minister of India that the safety of the Hindus and the other minorities there is a key priority for his government. Jessica, Prime Minister Modi also spoke with Benjamin Netanyahu as the Doha talks are on. The French and the British foreign ministers are there. But what sense do you get that out of this meeting, which has gone into the second day, would diplomacy prevail?
Well, this was something that Joe Biden had proposed back in May, and by then, the war or the escalation in West Asia was already into its 7th month, and now, of course, we're looking at 10 more months where we've lost more than 40,000 lives, and the hostages and the hostages with Hamas, and the continuous vocalization of the process of peace has been taking place from a very long time now. If you believe some reports, Amrit, you'd be able to sort of make out that at this point, as it has entered the second day today, the mediation does seem to be working, but the concerns loom large because ever since the Israeli strikes took down the Hamas's top political chief and, in fact, the leaders of Hezbollah, that hasn't gone down well. And the expected strike back from Israel with, Iran with full might is something that has to be avoided at any cost because of the widespread violence and the escalation seen there. So, of course, the big push being made in Doha right now, where we're given to understand that even though the Hamas leaders are involved, they're not directly communicating with the French and the American side, but they are speaking with the Qatari side and the Egyptians. So if there is a breakthrough, that would certainly bring in much more peace, not just to West Asia, but to the wider region as well.
That, for the moment, looks like a tall order. But thank you very much, Jessica Taneja, for joining us. And India's Ministry of External Affairs held a press conference in New Delhi addressing the media. The spokesperson of the ministry said that India is closely watching the situation and monitoring it in Bangladesh.
Prime Minister, when he spoke from the Red Fort, he conveyed concerns on behalf of 140 crore Indians that the status of minorities, status of Hindus and other minorities in Bangladesh, the government there should do more for the protection, for the safety and security. In fact, you would have in the suo motu statement that External Affairs Minister made in the Parliament also, there again he had mentioned his deep concerns about the safety and security of Hindus and other minorities. And he also had mentioned that we are monitoring the situation and we're deeply concerned about the safety and security of minorities.
India's Chief Election Commissioner Rajiv Kumar announced the schedule of assembly elections in Jammu and Kashmir and Haryana on Friday. The assembly polls in Jammu and Kashmir are to be held in 3 phases, first on the 18th of September, followed by the second phase on the 25th of September and the last phase on 1st of October. While the counting of votes will be taken up on the 4th of October, but Haryana will go to polls in a single phase, that's on the 1st of October. Counting for Haryana will take place along with the counting of J&K on the 4th of October.
Date of poll will be 18th of September and it's a Wednesday. We are also keeping that in mind, not keeping Fridays and Mondays to give a longer holiday spell. Second phase would be on 29th of August and the statutory period of nominations and all, poll being on 25th of September. And phase 3, nomination on 5th of September and every voting finishing on 1st of October. So counting would be on 4th of October and everything would be over, bind up on 6th of October. Haryana would be in the last phase, exactly coinciding with the third phase of J&K, nomination being on 5th of September, last date of making nomination on 12th of September, date of poll 1st October, and date of counting coinciding with J&K on 4th of October, everything to be over on 6th of October.
British and French foreign ministers are visiting West Asia to press for de-escalation, even as the United States and Qatar are trying hard for a ceasefire deal in Doha. Benji Haya is in Washington, D.C. to give us more on this and other stories making headlines around the world. So, Benji, what is your sense? You think diplomacy will prevail this time around?
Well, there's certainly the hope as key mediators work to break the deadlock following previous failed talks. We're on to day 2 now in Doha, the capital of Qatar, where these diplomatic efforts are underway to secure a ceasefire deal and a hostage deal between Israel and Hamas. The terror group are not present. They say they don't have a clear picture of where negotiations stand at this moment. Meanwhile, military operations continue in the Gaza Strip. Israel's ordered fresh evacuations in the southern and central part of Gaza on Friday, saying those areas had been used by Hamas as a base for firing mortars and rockets towards Israel. Well, in a bid to bolster peace efforts in West Asia, foreign ministers of both the UK and France have been meeting their counterpart, Israel Katz, and Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer in Israel again on Friday. Britain and France calling for a diplomatic solution to achieve a ceasefire in Gaza and restore peace along the Israeli-Lebanese border, escalating tensions there amid the conflict between Israel and Hamas. This visit, though, marks the first UK-France joint trip to Israel in more than a decade. DD India correspondent Sarah Coates has sent us this report from Tel Aviv.
Well, the World Health Organization says almost 650,000 children are at risk of contracting the disease after polio was found in wastewater in the Gaza Strip some weeks ago. Now, this urgent call comes amid intensive diplomacy here in the region. The foreign ministers of both France and Britain here on the ground holding high-level meetings with Israeli and also Palestinian officials in the West Bank, trying to calm tensions after assassinations of the head of Hamas's Politburo, Ismail Haniyeh, and also a senior Hezbollah commander. Now comes as ceasefire and hostage release talks are into their second day. There is quiet optimism, but mediators say that there is still quite a long way to go to get these warring parties to come to an agreement to bridge the gaps after 10 months of fighting, and also to see the release of more than 100 Israeli hostages who were snatched by Hamas when it broke through the fences into Israel last October. Reporting from Tel Aviv, Sarah Coates for DD India.
From the US, Kamala Harriss will make her first policy sentence speech as the Democratic Party presidential nominee. That's in just a few hours. She'll be taking aim at price gouging. The US Vice President travelling to Raleigh in North Carolina, a state that Democrats hope to flip this election, to outline her plan to lower costs for middle-class families. She plans to call for the construction of 3 million new housing units and outline new tax incentives for builders that construct properties for first-time home buyers. Her economic agenda broadly mirrors that of President Biden, but the administration's record has come under attack by Republicans, including their nominee for the president, former President Donald Trump. Meanwhile, as the campaign for the White House rumbles on, both Republican and Democrat candidates are using innovative jargon to provoke ideas and consolidate momentum in their favour. To explain exactly what that means, here's DD India's Akhilesh Suman.
On Thursday in New Jersey, US Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump presented himself as a defender of the Western civilization. He was speaking at a Jewish donors event. Trump further blamed Biden-Harris administration of violence the Jewish people are facing.
Kamala Harris is the candidate of the forces who want to destroy Western civilization, but most particularly Israel and Jewish people. And I'm the candidate of those who want to defend Western civilization, defend Israel, and defend the United States of America.
The Democrats, on their part, are targeting Republican leaders on issues such as Biden's signature Inflation Reduction Act. Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris and US President Joe Biden accused Trump of supporting corporate greed and utter disregard of the need to curb inflated prices of essential medicines. They were on first joint appearance in a rally after nomination of Harris as the presidential candidate.
Why are prescription drugs so expensive? I will tell you. Well, one big reason is for years, Big Pharma has often inflated the price of life-saving medication, often charging many times what it would cost to make just to increase their profits. And millions of Americans have suffered as a result.
Not a single Republican voted for this bill, period. Not one in the entire Congress. Now, the reason I say it is not to make a political point about them, if they've gotten the lesson, but guess what? They want to, the guy we're running against, what's his name? Donald Dump or Donald, whatever. They want to get rid of this, what we passed. They're fighting to get rid of what we've just passed. No, I'm serious.
In the United States, the election campaign is sure to get more shriller and nastier as November 5th approaches. Focus will remain on the respective viewpoints and opinions of both the leaders on issues that continue to be in public discourse, be it inflation in the US or conflicts in various parts of the world. Akhilesh Suman's report for DD India.
Closer to home, US Deputy Secretary of State for Management and Resources Richard Verma is leading a delegation to Nepal and India. It's a mission to advance and support security for both countries. During his visit starting tomorrow, Deputy Secretary Verma will meet with senior government officials, climate leaders and aerospace academics, as well as industry representatives. Discussions to be held on a range of issues including economic development, clean energy, climate action and STEM education. He'll be joined in India by Senior Advisor to the President for International Climate Policy John Podesta and Deputy Secretary of the US Department of Energy David Turk. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has rejected comments from American and Brazilian leaders about his country's contested presidential election held last month. He's declared himself the winner in widely disputed results. Speaking on state television, Maduro claimed that the United States is trying to become Venezuela's electoral authority. US President Joe Biden says he backs a new election in Venezuela.
I absolutely reject that the United States is trying to become Venezuela's electoral authority or anywhere in the world.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has chaired a meeting of Russia's Security Council with his aides alleging that the US-led NATO alliance helped to plan Ukraine's surprise attack on Russia's Kursk region. Western weaponry was used in the offensive, but Western powers were not given advance notice nor involved. Ukraine insists the incursion was needed to force Russia to start peace talks. Two people have been killed in a Ukrainian attack on a shopping centre in the Donetsk region. Smoke was seen rising from the Galaktika shopping centre in the now Russian-controlled city after Ukrainian shelling hit. We have DD India's Dasha Chonashova joining us live from Moscow. Dasha, just take us through what we now know about this attack.
Well, we understand that at least 100 people have been inside this shopping center in Donetsk. It is in the Donbas. We understand that the Ukrainian drones have been responsible for the fire that has engulfed the entire shopping center. Afterwards, at least 2 people have been presumably dead, and also other 11, according to the local health authorities, have been wounded. But keep in mind that this is something daily for the residents of this area of Donbas, because the Ukrainian shelling has been there for months now, and we understand from the local authorities that they have been trying to liquidate the consequences of this latest attack. But at the same time, if you look at the front lines and other regions, we have seen at least 12 ATACMS missiles being intercepted over Russia's Crimean bridge. More drones have been intercepted there. So these attacks against the civilian objects, as Moscow says, are the acts of terrorism that the Russian investigative committee is going to look into.
And have there been any developments in the Kursk region? Of course, the incursion by Ukraine has now lasted more than 10 days. What is the latest there?
Well, we understand that fighting is still ongoing, even though, as you have mentioned, this incursion has lasted more than 10 days. The Russian MOD has said that they have been carrying out strikes against the Ukrainian positions, both within the Russian borders and outside the Russian borders in Ukraine's Sumy region. We understand that the Russian armed forces have not allowed the several Ukrainian attempts to move deeper into the territory of Russia's Kursk region. At the same time, evacuations have also been taken place. At least two workers of one of the charities that have been helping the residents of Kursk, the civilians, to be evacuated from the areas where the fighting is taking place, they have been killed by the Ukrainian shelling. This organization, People's Front, says it was a direct strike by the Ukrainian military. And also we are hearing more of the rhetoric in Russia that this attack has been planned not just by the authorities in Kyiv, but also by those who are described in Moscow as Western curators of the Kyiv regime. That is the NATO intelligence as well as the intelligence of the Western countries. And some of the Russian officials are saying that these actions by the Ukrainian forces and by the Ukrainian authorities are bringing the world closer to World War III.
Dasha, thank you. Dasha Chernyshova, our correspondent in Moscow. A quick update now on the arrests linked with the death last year of Friends star Matthew Perry. 5 people have now been charged, 2 doctors and 3 others, including the actor's personal assistant. They're accused of providing ketamine, a powerful sedative that led to his death. Authorities claim the defendants illegally prescribed, sold or administered the drug, resulting in Perry's passing. Those charged includes Jasveen Sangha, known as the ketamine queen, and Dr. Mark Chavez, who supplied the sedative. Well, that's it from me here in Washington. Back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Benji, for that. And moving on, after the spread of Mpox outside the African continent, officials of the World Health Organization and the International Federation of Red Cross held a press conference on the disease, highlighting the threat of its spread. No travel restrictions were addressed, but an urgent need for international support was called in.
Spreading much more rapidly than we had seen others spread. So that's one issue. It does have quite a high case fatality rate at the moment. As mentioned, we've seen more than 500 deaths, and it's particularly dangerous for those with a weak immune system, so people who maybe have HIV or who are malnourished. And as you know, in the area that it's spreading very rapidly, Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, there are a lot of people who are displaced because of conflict and are under all kinds of stress. It's also dangerous for small children.
Thailand's parliament elected Paetongtarn Shinawatra as its youngest prime minister on Friday, only a day after she was thrust into the spotlight amidst unrelenting power struggle between the country's warring elites. Paetongtarn succeeds Shreta Thavisin, who was removed from his post by a constitutional court ruling on Wednesday. The 37-year-old Paetongtarn is the youngest child of billionaire tycoon Thaksin Shinawatra and is the 3rd member of the family after her father and aunt to hold the nation's top job. And let's now take a look at other stories making news around the world. The humanitarian crisis caused by civil war in Sudan is worsening as cholera continues to spread. According to WHO, cholera has already claimed over 300 lives with more than 11,000 cases reported. Italy faces a surge in heat-related illness as temperatures rise above 40 degrees centigrade and during an intense summer heat wave. Emergency room admissions in Rome have risen by 15 to 20% compared to winter due to heat-related conditions. Greenpeace Germany continues in search for the source of microplastics in the Rhine River. Water samples are collected near Chempark, an industrial facility in the North Rhine-Westphalia. The area houses around 500 companies near the cities of Leverkusen, Dormagen and Krefeld. And that's it in this edition of DD India Live, but do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India's mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR codes you see on your screens right now to download. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Amritpal Singh from my entire team here in Delhi. Thank you for watching DD India Global.